The euro crisis isn't just one thing, but a combination of several issues all affecting the eurozone. The European sovereign debt crisis was a time when some European countries, like Greece, had high government debt and their banks were failing. Stay tuned as we delve into more details. The news has often mentioned the euro crisis in recent years. While it sounds scary, it's not about the euro currency itself. Instead, it involves a mix of problems. Banks struggling, economies weakening, high government debt, and different opinions about what caused it all. Many blame the global financial crisis sparked by the Lehman Brothers collapse in 2008. However, some argue other factors were at play, like inherent weaknesses in the euro system itself, or even America's financial troubles. The Greek crisis also played a role, impacting the entire eurozone, which means countries using the euro. Understanding the euro crisis involves acknowledging various contributing factors and how they're all intertwined. Imagine several European countries like Greece and Spain spending more money than they earned, similar to someone using a credit card too much. This caused their debts to pile up and made people worry about their ability to pay them back. In 2008, things got worse when Iceland's banks collapsed, causing a domino effect that affected other countries. Investors became nervous and demanded higher interest rates to lend money to these countries, making their debts even more expensive. To prevent the whole eurozone, which is countries using the same currency, from falling apart, other European countries stepped in with financial help. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, also joined in to assist. However, this help came with a price. These countries had to cut back on spending, like reducing benefits or raising taxes, to bring their debt under control. This wasn't popular, but it was necessary. Even though the crisis is mostly under control, it left a mark. Some countries' credit ratings were lowered, and it took a while for their economies to recover. 17 European countries, using the same currency euro, got worried about their debts in 2010. They created a special fund called the EFSF to help each other out. Things got really bad between 2010 and 2012. People were scared these countries wouldn't pay back their loans, so they charged them higher interest rates. This made it even harder for these countries to fix their budgets, especially since their economies weren't growing much. Some countries, like Greece, tried to fix things by raising taxes and cutting spending. This made people unhappy and worried about their leaders. Investors also got nervous and downgraded the credit ratings of some countries, making things even worse. Basically, it all started in late 2009, when Greece admitted they'd been messing up their finances. This scared everyone and made the problem snowball. It took a long time to get things back on track, but eventually they did. Greece's debt problems started long before the recent crisis. Most of its debt actually accumulated in the 1980s and 1990s, reaching a high level of over 100% of its GDP by the year 2000. This happened despite Greece joining the European Union, or EU, in 1981 and adopting the euro in 2001. Joining the euro required meeting specific debt limits, which Greece didn't actually do. Greece needed help by May 2010 and received money from the EU and IMF, but in exchange, they had to cut spending and raise taxes, which made people unhappy. This, along with the recession, caused protests and even a risk of Greece leaving the eurozone, which included the group of countries using the euro. Luckily, Greece stayed in the eurozone and things started to get better. Unemployment went down, the economy grew, and even though it was tough, Greece recovered. In a nutshell, Greece's debt crisis began in 2009 when they announced a much higher budget deficit than allowed by the EU. This scared investors and made it harder and more expensive for Greece to borrow money to avoid defaulting on its debt. Greece received bailout loans from the EU and the IMF in exchange for implementing austerity measures. These measures meant raising taxes, reducing spending, and selling government-owned businesses. This helped Greece pay off some debt, but also caused a recession and hurt the economy. The crisis was complex and involved many parties. Some EU countries were hesitant to help, while others felt responsible for supporting Greece. Negotiations continued for years, with Greece receiving additional aid and making some debt payments. By 2018, the bailout program ended, but Greece still owes a significant amount of debt to various European institutions and private investors. They are still under informal supervision to ensure they stick to the agreed-upon economic reforms. Want to know why Greece didn't leave the Eurozone? Check out as we discuss here. Leaving the euro and returning to its own currency, the drachma, might have initially seemed attractive for Greece. It would have allowed them to. Escaping austerity measures could have boosted economic growth and lowered unemployment. Converting euro-based debt to drachmas and printing more currency would have made it easier to pay off. A weaker drachma would make Greek exports cheaper and tourism more attractive. However, there were significant downsides. Mainly European governments and banks would have lost a lot of money as the drachma's value dropped. The cost of imports, like food and energy, would have skyrocketed due to a weak drachma, hurting everyday life. Greece's ability to borrow would have been severely restricted, and attracting foreign investment would have been difficult. Other indebted countries might have left the euro, weakening the currency further and causing economic turmoil across Europe. Ultimately, the negative consequences, especially for Europe as a whole, outweighed the potential benefits for Greece. Leaving the euro would have been a risky gamble with potentially disastrous consequences. Greece faced pressure to repay its large debt, but ultimately didn't default for several reasons. A default would have crippled Greek banks, unable to operate without loans from the European Central Bank. The IMF, which also held Greek debt, wouldn't have been overwhelmed by a default. However, funding sources for future situations might be impacted, as the US, another significant contributor, wouldn't be keen on bailing out European debt due to its own financial issues, unlike previous debt crises in developing markets. A Greek default would have happened in a developed region, potentially impacting the global financial system in a more significant way. Overall, the potential domino effect on European banks, the financial burden on other European countries, and the potential for wider global disruption all acted as deterrents to Greece defaulting on its debt. Despite austerity measures, Greece's economic recovery faces several hurdles. Nearly half of Greece's GDP goes towards government expenses, even with EU support. Tourism contributes significantly to the economy, but it's vulnerable to external factors. Slow and complex administrative processes hinder investments and asset sales, despite downsizing. The government remains sluggish due to political interference and centralized decision-making. A significant portion of the economy operates unofficially, leading to fewer taxpayers and a higher tax burden for others. Many available jobs are low-paying and part-time, causing skilled professionals to leave the country. Banks are hesitant to lend money to businesses, hindering economic growth. These challenges suggest that while Greece is recovering, it has a long way to go before achieving a healthy and stable economy. If you liked watching our informative video, click on like and subscribe to our channel.